First thing, I'm going to open up the MMLC core package. So the only thing that we require is Dreamteck Splines and a core MMLC install. Once that's done, we'll talk through the various different behaviors that you can trigger and the helper functions that already exist within to do it. So we'll start with strafe. And so here's a spline I've created, and it has several actions that are going to occur. So it's going to start strafing here. And if we go to that trigger, so if you go to the spline computer component in that spline object and go to start strafe, you can also just click on the trigger itself. You're going to notice we use the spline helper utility, and this is a very useful tool to get you access to a lot of MMLC functions and other functions that are just useful. I'll keep adding to this, but it's just a quick helper function, and it serves a very important purpose, especially in here that I talk about in a different video, which is to allow you to prefab these splines without breaking any of these. You know, if you set this to your player character or whatever character you're using, if you were to try to prefab this, it would break these links and all of the functions that you were calling would disappear, and you would have to rebuild them all every time you wanted to apply it to a new character. So instead, what I've done is in my actual spline itself, you can do this in a sub-object, however you like to work. But I've added my MMC spline helper utility script, which is you just type helper or spline or whatever you like, and you go to this, add it to component, and then that allows me to just drag in the player character reference. And so I can prefab this spline, bring it into any scene, or during runtime, I can change which player it's referenced to, and it'll execute those triggers on, or which character, sorry, it's referenced to, and it'll just change its references to follow. So this is a much more robust, composable, modular way to work that allows you to reuse your spline behaviors, which is going to become very important when you start constructing natural, realistic AI behaviors. You can compose that from splines to get loiters and to get more complex interactions that you will then obviously cause excursions when their sight or hearing senses detect an object in the scene or detect something to investigate or want to start shooting at you. You can initiate all of those behaviors, but until then you can get more natural NPC behavior by using these splines, which we'll talk about in another video. So if you look at this one, he has a start strafe, and if we go look at the trigger, he slows down for a moment and then triggers the strafe start using the spline helper. And I have another video that talks about the better workflow for prefabbing splines, but right now we'll just talk about this. So he's going to start the strafe. He's going to stop for a tight turn, which is just stand in place, just same thing we did in that other spline. And then here we're going to slow down temporarily, which is setting the temp input vector to 0.5, meaning like that's the same thing as if you took the analog stick on the joystick and just eased it down to half power. And you're going to do that for 2 seconds and then bounce right back up to full power. What that's going to cause is him to kind of walk around this corner, but again, still strafing. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what that strafe is going to look like. So if we edit the spline and we pick up the spline point, we can switch over to normal mode. So it'll show us the normals. And sure enough, so that yellow line shows us what direction, when we have face normal mode, that's the direction the player is going to face when we pick up the spline. And so he's going to, generally speaking, be looking to the northeast here. But importantly, he's going to keep strafing. He's going to make this tight turn, and then he's going to swap around and he's going to start facing the other way. And he'll continue facing that way until he stops the strafe right there, and then nose follows all the way out from the spline. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like when it happens. So right about here, he's going to pick up his strafe. He's facing this way. As soon as he rounds this corner, he's going to flip around, and now he's going to be facing this way with the strafe, and he'll stay that way. He's going to slow for this turn, still strafing, facing the opposite direction, and then he's going to go back into nose following and run out the rest of the route. And again, there's some jankiness here, but you have control over that. You can just add the triggers in needed to author the motion that looks the most natural to you. If you do have parkour controller, we can open up the example scene and I can walk you through a slightly more complex evolution here. So here's a parkour run that I've scripted. And if we go to that, you'll see there's a bunch of triggers, but most importantly, we'll just walk through them. The first trigger, he's going to attempt to parkour just by firing a contextual action by string. He says, go ahead and parkour. There's nothing to parkour, so nothing will happen. Second one, he's going to attempt it again. There's actually an obstacle this time, so he's going to mantle that and then continue to run. We do a temp stop to make this so that it's a nice tight turn going into this next straight run. Here we do something a little different. We do fire that parkour action, but we also initiate the sprint. And then from there, it's just, getting that stop to be a little tighter and stopping the sprint when we get here. But the reason we go into a sprint is if you go to my NG ability parkour, you'll see that I have auto parkour mode set to sprint. So we'll go ahead and hit play and I'll show you what that's going to look like. All right, so as usual, I go to the scene mode because it just makes things easier to see. I select my player character. We go up to the NG character, go into the spline cinematic, and we drag in the parkour run. And so I'm going to follow this a little closer. So he's going to go ahead and pick up this line. He's going to execute that parkour maneuver. He's going to stop for a second, then he's going to pick this one up. He'll do it, and this is all now completely automatic parkour. So he's going to miss this because I didn't make it terribly sharp, but that's, again, in your control. So now he'll follow this. And again, this is no human interaction. This is just him following the spline. And that's it.